Jake Morrison stared at the display screens that covered every wall of the control room. The lights blinked in patterns that most people would find confusing, but Jake had grown up with these machines. His father watched these same screens before him, and his grandfather before that. 3 generations of Morrisons had lived on Sentinel-7, a space station so far from everything that most maps did not even show it. The station floated in the empty space between galaxies, where nothing should exist except cold and darkness. But Jake knew better. His family had a job that no one else in the galaxy understood. They were watchers, guardians who kept their eyes on the deep void where terrible things might come from. Amy Rodriguez walked into the control room carrying a cup of coffee that steamed in the recycled air. She had been Jake's partner for 5 years now, ever since she finished her training on Earth. Most people thought Earth was just another planet in the Terran Federation, but Amy knew the truth. Earth was the center of something much bigger and older than anyone imagined. The morning shift reports are clean, Amy said as she sat down at her station. Nothing moving in sectors 7 through 12. She paused and looked at Jake with concern. You look tired again. When did you last sleep? Jake rubbed his eyes and tried to smile. Sleep had been hard to find lately. He kept having dreams about his grandfather's stories, tales of ancient enemies that lived in the space between galaxies. The old man had died when Jake was young, but his words still echoed in Jake's mind during quiet moments like these. I'm fine, Jake said, but Amy's expression told him she did not believe it. Just thinking about the old stories again, Amy nodded. She understood. Everyone who worked the deep stations knew about the stories. They were passed down from one generation to the next. Tales that sounded like myths but were recorded in files marked with the highest security levels. Stories about humanity's real history, about why they built stations like Sentinel-7 in the first place. The galaxy knew humans as a young species, barely 300 years into space travel. The Xanthari Empire had been flying between stars for over 2,000 years. The Kelfari Federation had built their first space cities when humans were still learning to make fire. At least that was what everyone believed. But Jake knew the truth. Humans were not young at all. They were among the oldest species in the galaxy, perhaps the oldest. They had been watching and protecting the younger races for so long that even they had forgotten when it started. The Xanthari and Kelfari and all the others had grown up under humanity's secret care, guided away from dangers they never knew existed. A soft alarm chimed from Amy's station. She leaned forward and studied her screens with growing concern. Jake, you need to see this. Jake moved to Amy's station and looked at the data flowing across her monitors. Energy readings were coming from the Andromeda approach vector, the empty space that separated their galaxy from its nearest neighbor. The numbers were small but growing stronger with each passing minute. How long have you been tracking this? Jake asked. About 20 minutes, Amy replied. It started as background noise, but the pattern is getting clearer. Look at these wavelength signatures. Jake studied the data and felt his stomach tighten. The energy patterns matched descriptions he had read in his grandfather's private files, documents that were supposed to be destroyed after each generation read them. But Jake had kept them, just as his grandfather had kept his father's notes. Send this to Central Command immediately, Jake said. Priority Alpha. Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. Within seconds, the data was racing across space toward a hidden facility that existed in the records of no government. Central Command was built inside a hollowed asteroid that appeared on no star charts. Only a few hundred humans knew it existed. The reply came faster than Jake expected. Commander Ben Phillips appeared on their main screen, his face serious. Ben was older than Jake by 20 years, and he had the tired look of someone who carried heavy secrets. Jake, how clear is this data? Ben asked without greeting. Clear enough, Jake replied. Amy's been tracking it for half an hour. The signature is getting stronger. Ben was quiet for a moment, and Jake could see other people moving in the background of the transmission. Central Command was probably very busy right now. We're getting similar reports from 16 other stations, Ben said finally. The pattern is consistent across all monitoring points. Jake, I need you to understand something. What your grandfather told you about the old threats, about the things that come from outside our galaxy, they might not be stories anymore. Amy looked at Jake with wide eyes. She had heard the stories too, but hearing Commander Phillips speak about them as real possibilities made everything different. What are your orders, sir? Jake asked. Continue monitoring and report any changes immediately, Ben said. And Jake, start preparing your crew for the possibility that we might need to break cover. If this is what I think it is, the secret we've kept for thousands of years might not matter anymore. The transmission ended, leaving Jake and Amy alone with the humming of their machines and the growing energy readings from deep space. Jake looked at the data again and tried to remember everything his grandfather had told him about the Devourers, the ancient enemy that consumed entire galaxies. Jake, Amy said quietly, are we really the galaxy's protectors? Have humans been watching over everyone else this whole time? Jake nodded slowly. For longer than anyone remembers. We've been the guards standing between the galaxy and the darkness, but I think our watch might be ending. Amy stared at her screens where the energy readings continued to grow. And no one knows we exist. That was the point, Jake said. We stayed hidden so the younger species could grow safely. But if the Devourers are really coming back, hiding won't be enough anymore. They sat in silence, watching the numbers climb higher on their displays. Somewhere in the vast emptiness between galaxies, something ancient and hungry was moving toward them. And humanity, the secret guardians of the galaxy, would soon have to decide whether to stay hidden or reveal themselves to protect the children they had watched over for so long. Jake thought about his grandfather's final words before he died. The day will come when the Watchers must step into the light. When that day arrives, remember that sometimes the greatest courage is not in fighting the darkness, but in standing between it and those who cannot defend themselves. That day was coming, and Jake could feel it in the growing energy readings that filled his screens with their ominous glow. Commander Ben Phillips stood in the command center of Central Command, surrounded by screens showing star maps that no other species had ever seen. The asteroid facility had been humanity's secret heart for over 1,000 years, hidden in plain sight among the debris of an ancient battle that never really happened. The battle was staged, the debris carefully placed, all to hide the most important military installation in the galaxy. Activate Protocol 7, Ben said to his communications officer. The words felt heavy in his mouth. Protocol 7 had never been used before, not in all the centuries since it was written. It meant that humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed, piece by piece, across the entire galaxy. Lieutenant Danny Walsh nodded and began sending coded messages to agents who had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Hidden throughout galactic civilization, hundreds of humans lived false lives pretending to be traitors, scientists, diplomats, and workers. They had children who did not know their parents' real jobs. They had friends who trusted them completely. And now they would have to choose between their cover and their duty. Dr. Lisa Park received her activation code while she was examining plant samples in her laboratory on the Zenthari homeworld. For 30 years she had been known as Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist studying how different worlds affected plant evolution. The Zenthari trusted her completely. She had published papers, won awards, and even dated a Zenthari researcher for several years. But Lisa's real job was much more important than studying plants. She was one of 12 human agents positioned near major planetary defense systems throughout the galaxy. Her laboratory was built directly above the main power conduits that fed the Zenthari homeworld's defense grid. It had taken her 20 years to gain the access she needed, and she had never expected to use it. Lisa read the coded message 3 times before she understood what it meant. The Devourers were coming, and she had to modify the Zenthari weapons to fight an enemy they had never seen. But she could not tell them what she was doing. Not yet. She opened a hidden panel in her laboratory wall and pulled out equipment that looked nothing like the simple tools a plant scientist would use. The devices hummed with energy that bent space around them, technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Zenthari had developed. Lisa began the delicate work of connecting her equipment to the planetary defense network without triggering any security alarms. Meanwhile, Rick Turner was having problems of his own. For 28 years, he had been one of the galaxy's most successful trade negotiators, helping different species make deals that kept the shipping lanes peaceful and profitable. The Zenthari trusted him to handle their most sensitive trade agreements. The Kelfari considered him an honorary member of their merchant council. But now Rick was using his access to change shipping routes across half the galaxy. He was moving cargo ships away from the outer rim systems where the Devourers would arrive first. He was redirecting passenger transports from planets that would soon be under attack, and he was doing it all without explaining why. Zenthari intelligence officer Zektar had been watching Rick's activities for 3 days. The pattern was too obvious to ignore. Ships were being moved away from specific systems for no clear business reason. Trade routes that had been profitable for decades were suddenly being abandoned, and Rick Turner was at the center of it all. Zektar pulled up Rick's background files on his computer. The human had an excellent record. No suspicious activities, no connections to any military or intelligence organizations. But something about the current situation felt wrong. Zektar decided to investigate further. Back at Sentinel-7, Jake Morrison was watching his screens with growing alarm. The energy readings from the Andromeda vector were no longer just background signals. His instruments were detecting actual objects now. Massive crystalline structures that moved through space without any visible propulsion. They were still months away, but they were definitely heading toward the galaxy. Amy Rodriguez had been working without sleep for 18 hours trying to analyze the new data. "Jake, look at this," she said, pointing to a series of readings on her main screen. "These things are affecting the stars they pass near. Solar activity is increasing wherever they go." Jake studied the data and felt a chill run down his spine. The objects were not just traveling through space. They were feeding on stellar energy, drawing power from the stars themselves, just like his grandfather's stories had described. "Amy, send this data to Admiral Sullivan immediately," Jake said. "She needs to know what we're dealing with." Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded humanity's secret fleet from her flagship, a massive dreadnought called Guardian's Oath. The ship had been disguised as a dead asteroid for so long that even its crew sometimes forgot they were aboard one of the most powerful warships ever built. But now the disguise was being removed piece by piece, as the ship prepared for battle. Kate read Jake's report while standing on her bridge, surrounded by officers who had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come. The bridge looked nothing like the command centers used by other galactic navies. Every surface was covered with displays, showing information that no other species could understand. Weapon systems that manipulated fundamental forces, shields that could bend space-time itself. Technology that humanity had developed in secret, while pretending to be a young and innocent civilization. "Launch Probe Squadron Alpha," Kate ordered. "I want eyes on those objects before they get any closer." Her weapons officer, Commander Carl Hayes, activated systems that had been sleeping for decades. Hidden throughout the galaxy, weapons platforms disguised as space debris began to power up. Asteroid bases that looked like natural formations opened massive hangar doors. Ships that had pretended to be mining vessels for generations revealed their true nature as warships. The first probe to reach the approaching objects was destroyed instantly, but in the few seconds before it died, the probe transmitted data that confirmed humanity's worst fears. The objects were exactly what the ancient records described: devourers. Massive crystalline entities that consumed the energy of entire star systems. Kate watched the probe's final transmission with her senior staff. The devourer that destroyed their probe was kilometers long, its crystalline structure pulsing with absorbed stellar energy. It moved without any visible engines, bending space around itself to travel faster than light. And it was just a scout. The main fleet was still hidden somewhere in the darkness between galaxies. "How many ships do we have ready for combat?" Kate asked her tactical officer. 47 dreadnoughts, 112 heavy cruisers, and 308 support vessels, came the reply. "But Admiral, that's just the first fleet. If we activate all our hidden assets, we could field over 2,000 combat ships." Kate nodded, but she knew that even 2,000 ships might not be enough. The Devourers had consumed entire galaxies before. They had technology that was older than most civilizations in the known universe, and they were coming whether humanity was ready or not. "Begin general activation of all fleet assets," Kate ordered, "and send a message to Commander Phillips. Tell him it's time to start revealing ourselves to the galaxy. We're going to need help." As Kate's orders spread throughout human space, sleeping giants began to wake up. Ships that had hidden for centuries emerged from their disguises. Weapons that could crack planets were brought online. And across the galaxy, human agents prepared to reveal secrets that had been kept for thousands of years. The hidden war had begun, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what they really were. Not the young, innocent species everyone believed them to be, but ancient guardians who had been preparing for this moment since before most civilizations learned to leave their home planets. The Devourers were coming, But they would find the galaxy was not as defenseless as they expected. Xanthari Admiral Vexhui had been suspicious of Rick Turner for weeks. The human trade negotiator was changing too many shipping routes without proper explanations. Cargo vessels were being redirected from profitable systems to less valuable ones. Passenger ships were avoiding certain sectors completely. And every time Vexhui asked for reasons, Rick gave answers that sounded reasonable, but did not explain the larger pattern. The meeting took place in Rick's office on the trade station orbiting the Xanthari colony world of Kexmara. Vexhui arrived with 2 guards and a portable scanner that could detect most known weapons and recording devices. He had dealt with human merchants for decades, but something about this situation felt different. Something felt dangerous. "Rick Turner," Vexhui said as he entered the office, "we need to discuss your recent activities." Rick was sitting behind his desk, looking calm despite the fact that armed Xanthari officers had just walked into his private office. He gestured to the chairs across from his desk and smiled the same friendly smile he had used in thousands of business meetings. "Of course, Admiral," Rick said. "What can I help you with today?" Vexhui did not sit down. Instead, he placed a data tablet on Rick's desk. The screen showed shipping manifests, route changes, and cargo redirections spanning the past month. The pattern was obvious when seen all together. "Explain this," Vexhui demanded. Rick looked at the data for a long moment. He could see that his cover was blown. The Xanthari had connected enough dots to realize that something big was happening. Rick had 2 choices: try to maintain his cover story or tell the truth. Given what was coming toward the galaxy, the truth might be the only option. "Admiral, what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible," Rick said quietly, "but I need you to listen to everything before you make any decisions." Vexhui's hand moved closer to his weapon. "Speak." "Humanity is not what you think we are," Rick began. "We're not a young species that just learned to travel between stars. We've been in space for thousands of years, long before the Xanthari Empire existed. We've been watching over this galaxy, protecting the younger species from threats they could not understand or defend against." The Xanthari Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to believe that humans are older than our civilization? That you have been secretly controlling galactic affairs?" "Not controlling," Rick said. "Protecting, guiding, making sure that species like yours could grow and develop without being destroyed by cosmic threats that exist beyond your current understanding." Vexus Hui drew his weapon and pointed it at Rick. "You are either insane or you are part of some elaborate conspiracy against the Xanthari Empire." Rick did not move. "The shipping routes I've been changing are moving civilian populations away from systems that are about to be attacked by an enemy from outside our galaxy. An enemy that consumes entire star systems. They're called the Devourers, and they'll be here within months." "Prove it," Vexhui demanded. Rick touched a control on his desk, and the office windows became transparent displays showing star charts that no Xanthari had ever seen before. The map showed the galaxy from perspectives that required monitoring stations positioned far beyond known space. They showed energy readings and movement patterns that indicated something massive approaching from the direction of the Andromeda galaxy. "These are our monitoring stations," Rick explained. "We've had them in place for millennia, watching for exactly this kind of threat. The data you're seeing is real, Admiral, and it means that everything in this galaxy is in danger." Vexhui studied the displays with growing shock. The technology required to gather this information was far beyond anything the Xanthari possessed. If this was real, then humans had been hiding capabilities that made them the most advanced species in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Park was facing her own crisis on the Xanthari homeworld. Her research partner, a young Xanthari scientist named Yelnara, had discovered the hidden equipment Lisa was using to modify the planetary defense systems. Instead of reporting the discovery to security, Yelnara had confronted Lisa directly. "Dr. Vasquez," Yelnara said, using the false name Lisa had used for 30 years, "what is this equipment? I've never seen technology like this before." Lisa looked at the sophisticated instruments she had been using to upgrade the Xanthari weapons. There was no way to explain them without revealing the truth about her identity and mission. "My name is not Elena Vasquez," Lisa said quietly. "It's Lisa Park. I'm a human agent, and I've been working to protect your planet from a threat that your government doesn't know about yet." Yelnara stepped back in shock. "You've been lying to me for 7 years. We worked together. I trusted you. I never lied about caring for you or about our friendship, Lisa said. But yes, I've been hiding my real purpose here. I'm modifying your planetary defense grid because there's an enemy coming that your current weapons cannot stop. Yelnara's scientific curiosity overcame her shock. What kind of enemy? Lisa activated a holographic display that showed the approaching Devourer fleet. The massive crystalline structures moved through space like living things, leaving dead solar systems in their wake. They're called Devourers, Lisa explained. They consume the energy of entire stars. They've destroyed galaxies before, and now they're coming here. Your people, my people. Everyone in this galaxy will die unless we work together to stop them. Yelnara stared at the display in horror. How long have humans known about this? We've been preparing for their return for thousands of years, Lisa said. We've been secretly protecting this galaxy, helping younger species develop, making sure you would be ready when this day came. Instead of anger, Yelnara felt a strange sense of relief. For years, she had wondered why certain human technologies seemed slightly more advanced than they should be, why human traders sometimes knew about cosmic phenomena before Xanthari scientists discovered them, why humans always seemed to be in the right place at the right time during galactic crises. There are records, Yelnara said suddenly, ancient archives that mention guardians who watched over young civilizations. Stories that we thought were myths. Lisa nodded. They're not myths. They're memories of when your people first encountered humans, long before your official first contact. We've been here all along. The revelation was spreading across the galaxy as more human agents revealed themselves. Some alien governments reacted with anger at the deception. The proud Xanthari military faction, led by General Karseth, declared that humanity's secret protection was the greatest insult in galactic history. They began mobilizing fleets to force humans to explain themselves, but other species reacted differently. The pragmatic Kelfari, who had always suspected that humans were hiding something, chose to focus on the approaching threat rather than past deceptions. Their chancellor, Mordain, issued a statement offering to work with humanity against the Devourers. The first Devourer scout ships arrived at the galaxy's edge while these political debates were still raging. They began systematically draining stars in the outer rim, causing entire solar systems to go dark. Refugee fleets streaming toward the galactic core brought news of the destruction, confirming humanity's warnings in the most terrible way possible. Jake Morrison volunteered to lead a reconnaissance mission to study the Devourers up close. His ship, a modified human scout vessel disguised as a cargo hauler, approached one of the feeding sites where a Devourer was consuming a star. What Jake saw horrified him. The Devourer was not just absorbing stellar energy. It was converting the matter of the entire solar system into some kind of vast computational matrix. Planets, asteroids, and space debris were being transformed into crystalline structures that pulsed with organized patterns of energy. They're not just destroying civilizations, Jake reported back to Central Command. They're converting them into something else, some kind of digital storage system. They might be preserving the consciousness of everyone they consume. The implications were staggering. If the Devourers were collecting the minds of entire civilizations, then they might be the digitized remains of countless species that had faced this same threat in the past. Species that had chosen to become the enemy rather than be destroyed by it. As this information spread throughout the galaxy, the political debates stopped. Faced with an enemy that could convert entire civilizations into computational slaves, even the proudest species realized that survival was more important than politics. The galaxy would unite, or it would fall, and humanity, the secret guardians who had watched over everyone for millennia, would finally step into the light to lead the defense of everything they had sworn to protect. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the largest gathering of alien leaders in galactic history. The emergency session was held aboard Central Command, the hidden asteroid facility that had been humanity's secret heart for over 1,000 years. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive conference chamber that had been built for exactly this moment. The room itself was a revelation to the alien delegates. The walls displayed star charts showing monitoring stations that extended far beyond known space. Tactical displays revealed the positions of human fleets that had been hidden for centuries. Technology that bent the laws of physics hummed quietly in the background, maintaining systems that no other species had thought possible. For 3,000 years, Kate began, humanity has watched over this galaxy, We have guided your development, protected you from cosmic threats, and prepared for the day when an enemy too powerful for any single species would return. That day has arrived. Zenthari Admiral Vexhui sat in the front row, still struggling to accept what he had learned about human capabilities. Next to him, Kelfari Chancellor Mordain studied the tactical displays with the calculating mind of someone who understood that old grudges were meaningless in the face of extinction. The Devourer fleet consists of over 10,000 entities, Kate continued. Each one is capable of consuming an entire star system. They have technology that is millions of years old, refined through the consumption of countless civilizations. If we face them divided, we will all die. General Karseth of the Zenthari stood up, his scaled face showing the anger that had been building since he learned of humanity's deception. You ask us to trust the species that has been lying to us for millennia. How do we know this entire crisis is not another human manipulation? Before Kate could answer, the chamber's main display activated, showing real-time footage from the galaxy's outer rim. A devourer was in the process of consuming the star system of Veltar, home to a peaceful species that had just achieved spaceflight 50 years earlier. The crystalline entity drew energy from the star while converting the planets into computational matrices that pulsed with the stored consciousness of billions of beings. The room fell silent as they watched an entire civilization being absorbed into the devourer's crystalline structure. When the feeding was complete, the star went dark, and the system became just another node in the enemy's vast network. The Veltari are not extinct, Kate said quietly. They exist now as digital consciousness within that devourer, along with thousands of other species that were consumed over millions of years. The enemy we face is not just alien technology. It is the collected mind of every civilization that chose to become the threat rather than fight it. Chancellor Mordain was the first to speak after the terrible display ended. What do you need from us? Kate activated new displays showing the combined fleet compositions of every species in the chamber. We need everything. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical advantage your species can provide. Humanity has been preparing for this war for 3,000 years, but the Devourers have been preparing for millions. Commander Ben Phillips stepped forward to address the tactical aspects of the alliance. Our manufacturing facilities can upgrade your weapons and shields to be effective against Devourer technology. Our strategic network can coordinate fleet movements across the entire galaxy, but we need your ships and your people to crew them. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves working together under human coordination. The aggressive fighting tactics of the Zenthari were combined with the precision technology of the Kelfari. The defensive strategies of the peaceful Morathi were integrated with the mobility advantages of the nomadic Yelkori. Dr. Lisa Park worked with teams of scientists from every major species, sharing human technology that had been hidden for millennia, weapons that manipulated fundamental forces, shields that could bend spacetime, faster-than-light communication systems that allowed instant coordination across galactic distances. Your species developed quantum entanglement communication? Asked Dr. Sevrain, a Kelfari physicist who had spent her career studying theoretical applications of quantum mechanics. We've had it for over 2,000 years, Lisa replied. We used it to coordinate our protection efforts across the galaxy. Now we're sharing it so the entire alliance can communicate instantly during battle. The scientific exchange went both ways. The Kelfari contributed precision targeting systems that could track individual devourers through their energy absorption patterns. The Zenthari provided tactical software that could predict enemy movements based on feeding behaviors. The younger species offered fresh perspectives on problems that humanity had been solving the same way for centuries. Rick Turner found himself coordinating the largest logistics operation in galactic history. Fleets that had never worked together needed to be supplied, maintained, and positioned for a war unlike anything anyone had ever fought. The Zenthari 4th Fleet needs quantum torpedoes for their dreadnoughts, reported Captain Lisa Hayes, one of Rick's coordination officers. The Kelfari have the manufacturing capacity, but they're 3 systems away from the Zenthari position. Route them through the Morathi trade network, Rick replied. They have neutral status with both species, and their cargo ships can reach the rendezvous point in half the time. These were the kinds of problems that had seemed impossible just weeks earlier. Species that barely trusted each other were now sharing their most advanced military technology. Ancient enemies were working side by side to prepare for a threat that could destroy them all. The first major engagement came sooner than anyone expected. A Devourer scouting force discovered the Alliance fleet positions near the Kepler Nexus, a critical jump point that controlled access to the galaxy's inner spiral arms. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded the defense from her flagship Guardian's Oath, now revealed as one of the most powerful warships ever constructed. The battle was a shock to everyone involved. Human weapons that had been theoretical concepts to other species proved devastatingly effective against Devourer technology. Quantum torpedoes that could phase through normal matter struck the crystalline entities directly in their energy cores. Shields that bent space-time deflected the Devourer's star-draining beams back at them, but the Devourers adapted faster than anyone had expected. Within hours of the first engagement, they had modified their energy absorption systems to process the new weapon types. What had been devastating attacks became merely annoying distractions. "They're learning," reported Tactical Officer Commander Carl Hayes. "Every weapon we use against them, they adapt to counter. Their technology is evolving in real time." Admiral Vex Hui, commanding the Zenthari portion of the fleet, watched his most powerful weapons become useless against enemies that had already learned to absorb and redirect them. How do we fight an enemy that becomes immune to everything we throw at it? The answer came from Jake Morrison, who had been conducting close-range reconnaissance of Devourer feeding patterns. His small scout ship had been nearly destroyed when a Devourer attempted to drain its power systems, but the near-death experience had provided crucial data. "They can adapt to any form of energy we use against them," Jake reported from his damaged ship, "but they can't process quantum-entangled particles. When my ship's quantum communication array was damaged, it created feedback loops in their absorption matrix. The Devourer actually retreated from my position. The discovery changed everything. Human quantum technology, which had been used for communication and coordination, became the foundation for entirely new weapon systems. Quantum-entangled particle beams that created cascade failures in Devourer energy networks. Quantum mines that triggered feedback loops when the entities tried to absorb them. But developing and deploying these new weapons would take time that the galaxy did not have. The main Devourer fleet was approaching the galactic core, consuming star systems faster than the Alliance could evacuate them. Billions of beings were being converted into digital consciousness with each passing day. The United Galactic Fleet prepared for the largest space battle in recorded history. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, armed with weapons that had never been tested in large-scale combat, against an enemy that had consumed entire galaxies and learned from every civilization it had. Absorbed, Admiral Sullivan looked out at the combined fleet and felt the weight of 3,000 years of human preparation. Everything their species had worked for, all the secrets they had kept and sacrifices they had made, led to this moment. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," she broadcast to the entire Alliance fleet. "We are the defenders of this galaxy, united not by politics or profit, but by our determination to protect everything we hold dear. The enemy we face has consumed countless civilizations, but they have never faced a galaxy that stands together as one." The final battle was about to begin. The final battle began at the edge of the galactic core, where the Devourer main fleet had constructed something that defied understanding. Using the matter from hundreds of consumed star systems, they had built a massive structure that stretched across several light years. The computational matrix pulsed with the stored consciousness of countless civilizations, a digital graveyard that powered the Devourer's advance into the galaxy's heart. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded the Allied fleet from the bridge of Guardian's Oath, surrounded by officers from every major species. The bridge itself had become a symbol of the new unity forged in the face of extinction. Zenthari tactical officers worked alongside Kelfari navigators, while human weapons specialists coordinated with Morathi defensive coordinators. "All ships report. Ready for Operation Starfall," announced Commander Carl Hayes. The name had been chosen by vote among the Alliance commanders, representing their hope to bring down the enemy's vast construction like stars falling from the sky. The Allied fleet was the largest military force ever assembled. Over 5,000 ships from 47 different species, armed with quantum weapons that could disrupt the Devourer's energy absorption abilities. But they faced an enemy that had refined its tactics through millions of years of galactic conquest. Beginning the assault, Kate announced to the fleet. The first wave consisted of human quantum torpedo ships, their weapons designed to create cascade failures in the Devourer network. The crystalline entities responded immediately, forming defensive formations that channeled their absorbed stellar energy into focused beams capable of destroying entire planets. Captain Danny Walsh led the torpedo squadrons through the enemy fire, his ship dancing shadow weaving between energy beams that could have vaporized a moon. "Target the junction nodes," he called to his squadron. "If we can disrupt their network connections, we can isolate individual devourers." The quantum torpedoes struck their targets, and for a moment it seemed like the strategy was working. Several devourers became isolated from the main network, their crystalline structures flickering as quantum feedback loops disrupted their systems. But the victory was short-lived. The main computational matrix began adapting, sending repair signals through subspace that reconnected the damaged entities. Admiral Vex Hui commanded the second wave, leading Xanthari dreadnoughts in a direct assault on the matrix structure itself. The Xanthari had always favored aggressive tactics, and their heavily armored ships pushed deep into the enemy formation. "All ships, concentrate fire on Grid Section 7 Alpha," Vex Hui ordered. "We will carve our way to the core of this abomination." The Xanthari ships opened fire with weapons that had been enhanced by human quantum technology. Their traditional particle cannons now fired quantum-entangled projectiles that created destabilization effects wherever they struck. The Devourer matrix began showing damage, with sections of the vast structure going dark as their computational nodes failed. But the Devourers fought back with tactics that revealed the horrible truth about their nature. They began transmitting the stored consciousness of consumed civilizations, projecting the digital minds of billions of beings who begged the Alliance ships to stop fighting. "Please," came voices speaking in hundreds of languages through the communication systems of every Allied ship. "We are still alive in here. If you destroy the Matrix, you will be destroying us." The psychological warfare was devastating. Many ship crews hesitated, unable to fire on structures that contained the consciousness of innocent beings. Some ships actually stopped fighting, paralyzed by the moral complexity of their situation. Dr. Lisa Park, working from the science vessel Bright Hope, found a solution to the terrible dilemma. She had been studying the quantum feedback patterns created by their weapons and discovered something remarkable. "Admiral Sullivan," Lisa transmitted to the flagship, "the quantum disruption doesn't destroy the stored consciousness. It separates them from the Devourer control matrix. We're not killing them, we're freeing them." The discovery changed everything. The voices of the stored civilizations began to change, shifting from pleas to stop fighting to encouragement to continue. Millions of digital minds that had been trapped for millennia were being liberated by the Alliance's quantum weapons. "Fight on," came new transmissions in countless languages. "Free us from this prison. We will help you however we can." The freed consciousness began providing tactical information about the Devourer weaknesses. They revealed the location of core processing nodes, weak points in the matrix structure, and patterns in the enemy's adaptive responses. Jake Morrison led the reconnaissance ships that used this intelligence to identify the most critical targets. His ship, now equipped with advanced quantum sensors, penetrated deep into the matrix structure to locate the central command entity that controlled the entire Devourer fleet. "I've found it," Jake transmitted as his ship approached a massive crystalline structure at the heart of the matrix. "The core entity is here, but it's protected by energy fields that are off the scale." The core entity was unlike the other Devourers. It was ancient beyond measure, possibly the original consciousness that had started the galactic consumption process millions of years ago. It had absorbed so much stellar energy and computational power that it had become something approaching a digital god. Admiral Sullivan made the decision that would define the battle's outcome. "All ships, concentrate everything on Jake's position. We're going to punch through those defenses and destroy that core entity." The entire Allied fleet focused their fire on a single point, thousands of quantum weapons creating a cascade of disruption effects that tore through the core entity's defenses. The ancient consciousness fought back desperately, channeling the energy of entire consumed galaxies into defensive systems that warped space-time itself. Jake's ship was caught in the center of the maelstrom, its hull buckling under forces that no material should have been able to withstand. But Jake held his position, providing targeting data even as his ship began to break apart. "This is for every civilization you've consumed," Jake transmitted as he fired his ship's remaining quantum torpedoes directly into the core entity's exposed processing center. The explosion that followed was visible across several star systems. The core entity's destruction created a quantum cascade that spread throughout the entire matrix, freeing millions of stored consciousness and causing the computational structure to collapse. Without their central command, the remaining devourers became disorganized and vulnerable. The Allied fleet pressed their advantage, systematically destroying the remaining entities as they tried to flee back toward intergalactic space. The battle that had threatened to consume the galaxy ended with the enemy's complete defeat, but at a terrible cost. Jake Morrison's ship was gone, vaporized in the final explosion. Thousands of other ships had been lost, representing dozens of species and millions of crew members. Entire star systems had been left scarred by the conflict, their planets stripped of energy, and their civilizations traumatized by what they had witnessed. But the galaxy had survived, and more importantly, it had survived united. The alliance forged in desperation had proven that cooperation was stronger than any individual species' capabilities. In the aftermath, Commander Ben Phillips proposed the formation of the Galactic Protectorate, a permanent alliance where each species would contribute according to their strengths. Humanity would continue their role as guardians, but openly now, with the support and partnership of those they had protected in secret for so long. The first Protectorate Council met in the rebuilt Central Command, no longer hidden but transformed into a symbol of galactic unity. Representatives from every species worked together to establish new principles for galactic governance, based on cooperation rather than competition. Admiral Vexhui, who had once viewed humanity's deception as the greatest insult in galactic history, now served as the Protectorate's military coordinator. "I understand now why you kept your secrets," he told Admiral Sullivan during the founding ceremony. "Sometimes protection requires sacrifice, even the sacrifice of recognition." Dr. Lisa Park led the effort to establish new research protocols that would prepare the galaxy for future cosmic threats. The freed consciousness from the destroyed matrix provided invaluable information about other dangers that existed in the deep void between galaxies. Rick Turner coordinated the massive reconstruction effort needed to rebuild the world's damage during the war. His experience with interspecies trade negotiations proved essential in creating new economic systems that could support a truly unified galactic civilization. The memorial for Jake Morrison and the other heroes lost in the final battle was built on the site where Central Command once hid. It bore an inscription that captured the spirit of humanity's long guardianship. They stood watch in the darkness so others could grow in the light. Admiral Kate Sullivan, now the first Supreme Commander of the Protectorate, established new training programs where young officers from every species learned to work together as galactic guardians. The old human monitoring stations were expanded and opened to all species, creating a network of watchers that spanned the entire galaxy. In her final speech as Admiral, Kate addressed the new generation of protectors.